Live streaming is on.
Does that work, John?
Sure.
Nice. Yeah, so let's get into the issues. So I think we have two major updates here. One of them is major updates. I worked a bunch on this tool in Rust to print well, it doesn't just print the path references anymore. It also does a bit more than that. And we have the PR here by John and Alex, or Alex mainly, and John has shadowed Alex,
Yeah.
or
I couldn't have done it without John.
But
Nice,
Alex,
so-
I untyped
I typed it. I typed it with my fingers with careful guidance.
Awesome, nice. Yeah, let's maybe briefly go over that. So it pretty much just adds a read file type primup, and then we had some people review that. So Robert made a review. I saw Ilko also made a review, which is nice. Yeah, I'm not sure personally about needing a general stat.
Yeah, I mean that was one that I said. You know, like I've definitely had situations where a stat built in would be useful, but I just felt like that was like kind of out of scope here. That I think that's super useful. I have situations that I could take advantage of it, but for what we're trying to do here, I saw it as like maybe unrelated.
Yeah, it's kind of new information that you could get in the next evaluator. Well, not necessarily new information. You can read the file and then get the string length, I suppose.
That was So in the past, like if I needed to know like if it was executable, there is a hack where you can check the nar hash against the CA hash of a file, and it can reveal if something isn't executable or not. But so there's definitely situations where I thought that would be useful, but for what we were trying to do here, especially like having this tied into readdir, I felt like it was kind of maybe it would be better as a separate built-in.
I mean, I would say, maybe the ideal thing is just not even expose it at all, and it's just
have it internal.
Justice can use to kind of punt on that. Yeah, but insofar that there is a public built-in, I get why Elko and Robert said that. It's sort of like the one-stop shop for just the things that we care about and none of the things that you're really not supposed to observe at all in the Nix way of doing. I guess I'd be curious for Robert to, say what he still thinks, if he's still thinks not full, but more stat is a good idea or not. And that could be kind of a time.
Sort of NAR format level of stat that would be nice. So
yeah,
executable bit, the file type obviously, file size. I don't really care much about it, but I guess for performance, maybe something should skip large files and someone gets stuck. Otherwise, I'm trying to make up a use case here. But, I think for executable bit is I think quite reasonable to have. Start for free. So
I'd say we'd really need to justify the use cases for it, because right now I don't really know any.
I'll say I have like when I'm like unpacking a large number of tarballs from NPM, being able to check the executable bit on directories becomes important. For one, and then also there are actual like executables in those packages that like if it was just one or two or even like a dozen, it's no big deal to just do a couple. But being able to scan large collections of them to say, do any of these need me to, like, in a derivation as an edge case, go and explicitly set permissions, is quite useful. But like, I guess for what we were trying to do here,
shouldn't this be available at build time as well?
Yeah, and so I think the thing was, like, if I can download and consume a tarball as is with no changes, that is, like, I would say, like, one category of package versus those that need explicit fix up. Usually, like, by setting permission bits or something like that, where it
so
seems
you avoid
minor. Yeah,
so you can avoid a derivation by checking
exactly.
it at the build time beforehand.
You actually just convinced me of the opposite. So if it's per the Nix model, only files have is executable bit. That information doesn't exist on derivations.
Only files should have an executable bit.
Well, like a nar, I don't think a nar is going to have that.
A nar wouldn't, but a tarball that you have unpacked using the built-ins retains those bits, unfortunately.
Yeah, but
I agree with you. But yeah, that's
I think you should not be able to get that from a built-in. So our one use case for getting the executable is no longer kosher.
Well, I think for files it's still reasonable. Maybe someone has a directory with some scripts and some whatever files, and
yeah, I mean, I do the same thing for scripts.
They're gonna need the executable bit to do that.
But yeah, like I said, I do think that use case was, like, separate from what I guess our goal was with this PR.
Yeah,
and I think about fixing up tarballs, maybe that should be a responsibility of the. I think this is the built-in fetcher that you're.
Yeah.
Working around, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and I knew when I used it, like, that. Look, I'm using the experimental built-in. I know I'm on my own here, but that was definitely a use case where knowing whether or not certain files or directories had executable bits set would be useful. Yeah. So, I mean, trust me, if someone added a built-in that let me see file stat, I would definitely use that. But that wasn't really what I was shooting for on this PR.
Yeah.
Fix up.
Yeah, and I will say, being able to avoid a derivation on those is a night and day difference in performance. Like, because I mean, just the quantity that you're dealing with is like 5,000, 10,000 tarballs in some cases, where any extra overhead is costly.
Well, 5,000 tarballs.
Yeah, and because I mean, this is the web devs, and they want 5 to 10,000 tarballs with 2 files in them.
I mean, I can put this into here.
Oh. Well, I was with in the notes also about the derivations particularly.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've been getting like power surges today. My UPC system is like warning me. It's like, hey, something's wrong outside, man.
Yeah. And I'm gonna write this down here. An alternative is to just, right? We discussed this. Make the prim up internal.
Yeah, and I think we have call built-in. I mean, sorry, call flake and that kind of like I think we have internal.
Yeah, it can be done. It can be done. But I do think it's a bit of a shame because we do have a valid use case for path type, the original idea, just the type. We have an issue for it. I originally wrote it. I think 1 or 2 people commented that they also needed something like this.
I think
it's probably a shame not to have it.
Well, I would.
As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't have to be the full stuff thing with executable bit. It could be just a type.
Yeah, but I guess if there's consensus that is a useful thing.
Yeah, I guess like okay, so and the only thing that I was thinking was the intention of this PR was like to improve read directory performance. And so I would almost think that like if we take the one basically enum field that we're trying to fill here and we explode that into like for each file 5 fields. I don't know if that's I don't know. Like I would prefer to have 2 separate built-ins even if one was like hidden. So that like really like for the readdir thing that we were just pulling the info we needed, because then I think otherwise in the case of readdir you'd have like I'm trying to think. Oh well, I guess you would still only check the type, but you are still like probably are you still going to allocate all those other ones?
Yeah, I'm going to allocate very small objects. Just the attribute in the bindings. I think that's like 2 or 3 words.
Okay.
And
yeah, and I'm probably in my head. I'm probably just like exaggerating how bad it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, it is something to be aware of. It's not zero cost then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there's
a larger issue
on it. So it does add up a bit, perhaps. I'm kind of in favor of keeping it simple and doing path type. You can do path info if the need arises.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I really would use a routine like that if we had it. So I think I like yeah, I don't want to make it come across that I'm like coming down on that because I would 100% use that. I just wouldn't want to like maybe put it in this routine because I think it might. I wouldn't want to hold up the PR with everyone like talking about like everything they want to see in a stat routine for one thing, but also like I don't know if it's
Sounds good. Another issue is I'm totally uncertain of what the performance implications of anything are.
Yeah,
you need a pretty fucked up old file system to not get the stat info from the readdir, and the getEnds is already batched.
Well, what about Darwin though?
Yeah,
so that's what we got to test.
Fast on Linux. Maybe this will be better on Darwin, but maybe the problem with Darwin is something else. I have no idea what the problem with Darwin is. Like,
is there a problem with Darwin?
So when we tested this yesterday, and I even told John when I was first logging in, I was like, "Oh man, this is the first time I've booted up my Linux box in a long time." I've been using a Darwin machine for work, like basically every day. And so the complaints that I had about the speed of readdir were definitely stuff that I experienced on Darwin. And so when we ran, it was funny, we did the patch and ran it, and like we just for fun tried it on my test repo, and I was immediately like, oh my God, this is so much faster than when I normally do it. And then we said, oh, let's do a side-by-side then. We ran it with just like plain old Nix, no patch. It was just as fast on Linux. And then so I think it kind of clicked for me like, oh, this is probably just a Darwin thing. Yeah, and then when we were doing S traces, we saw like it is calling, like Linux calls read ENTs already. So this may be just a Darwin thing. It might be a particular file system issue. So I think having a good test harness though, where we can kind of nail down how this changes things, I think would be good. But I guess in either case, I think having those as a thunk makes sense. Like just in general.
Yeah, well, I don't think we need like a test harness for this specifically. As long as someone tests the performance and yes, it improves it on Darwin and doesn't make it worse on Linux, it should be like that's all that's needed in my opinion. The
Linux code path is unchanged, right?
Unless you have a weird file system issue.
Yeah.
In which case it improves just like on Darwin.
Yeah, we did explicitly test it on out on dev, like devices to make sure that that code path was getting called on Linux. And it did still behave the way that it used to, which is good. So there was no, like, I mean, it still says unknown when you call it out on /dev, which is what we expected. But yeah, we got to test it on a system that would, like, you know, maybe actually return unknown for normal files.
But yeah, I mean, we have Darwin, right? That does the unknown thing, right?
Well, we don't know what Darwin is doing. For all we know, Darwin is slow for a completely different reason. Like maybe the reader isn't batched on Darwin, and there is no getends to make it fast.
But
And
wait,
so,
did I get it wrong? So you tried this patch on Darwin, and from what I heard, right?
We haven't tried it on Darwin.
Sped it up?
we haven't tried things on Darwin.
You haven't tried it.
No, but
Yeah,
I could
so
try it today.
You mentioned earlier that it was like very fast on Darwin.
On Linux.
Oh, you
On
tried
Linux.
it on Linux and it was like.
But
awesome.
but then the caveat there was then we tried an unchanged Nix, and that was also very fast on Linux, which made me realize, oh, the code that I was complaining about maybe was only slow on Darwin. So we wanted to investigate that a little bit to find out really what was going on.
Worst case, there is no way to get shit out of directories fast on Darwin, and we're kind of screwed on this whole project.
Well, okay. I think by making them a thunk, that's...
I don't mean the PR. I mean like the Nixpkgs architecture project. We have to
Well, we don't need the
packages that's a cached reader or something.
Oh, you mean that Darwin might also be slow at just reading, like listing directories and not even getting the stats from those?
Yeah, it's
Maybe.
if it doesn't do the behind the scenes getends caching, they're both one system call per directory entry, and they're probably both.
But listing a directory shouldn't be like multiple syscalls or whatever it is on Darwin.
Well, the POSIX interface is you get one entry at a time in a syscall. It has state and it's like get me the next thing. It's terrible.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I can't imagine Darwin relying on that.
I think if that's the case,
I can imagine Darwin being that shitty.
We'll see. I think we gotta test this because we're doing a lot of speculation right now. I think like we should test this out and see how it does.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My overall thing is we like kind of went in on like theory-based optimizing, and then I feel like we got wrecked, and like we have to like turn off our brains and go full empiricism, because like
you gotta go probe this thing and find out. What's going on.
It's all too weird. Like the libcs
and
can do
it doesn't.
Systems, the kernels can do whatever. It's too unpredictable.
I think, John, when was the last time? John was like tracing through the libc headers last night, and it was just like, that's always a good time. Going to see the opt levels that those macros unroll into is always enlightening.
Yeah.
Robert, you also wanted to say something?
Yeah. Two things. One is, if Darwin is really slow, Git will suffer too. So if Git is fast enough on Darwin, it should be fast enough for us. That's one thing. And the other thing is, even if Git is slow on Darwin, the project isn't lost because we can still work with lists in a file, which is still better than all packages of Nix.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah. And we have a little script that just keeps that file up to date by doing reader on Linux.
Let me tell you about this ls ***, and then pipe that bad boy into a file, call it a day. I got a one-liner for you. It's gonna put this whole PR to shame.
Okay, but that sounds great. I'll put here an action item that Ericsson main 314 and we'll test continue with that PR. Does it sound good?
Yep.
Especially testing it on Darwin.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So under the note about Ericsson, you got to write Kropotkin never scared.
Okay, let's see. Can't immediately do that. Yeah, wait. I want to quickly share the thing I've been doing.
Yay.
Go here. So yeah, writing Rust. It's currently in the Smarter tool branch, which is in the PR that's already open. And so the code is, Vanya actually last week when I worked on this, he offered to help. Was a bit late, but I'd appreciate some Rust help.
Sure thing. I'll try what I can.
Yeah, and so it's currently like 220 lines or something. It's pretty ugly, but what it does is it can cargo run. You can give it Nixpkgs, and then it scans through all files of Nixpkgs, finds Nix files, and finds references in those Nix files. And then it creates like a tree, like a file system tree, which registers which files are unsafe to move and which files are unsafe to rename, which are actually two separate things. Some files are safe to rename but not move around.
How many false negatives do you expect from this? I mean, evil question, but maybe.
How many false negative?
Yeah, like references that you miss because maybe somebody's gluing paths together or something. That's a thing.
Yeah,
right?
That is a question, and in fact, the auto calling we're doing will glue paths together like that. So those will certainly be missed. But I don't think there's maybe even any use in Nixpkgs for this kind of thing. So
there certainly doesn't need to be, and I think if there is, it should be easy enough to find out by running Hydra, see which attributes disappear.
Well, no, it shouldn't really. You mean for the once we have the auto calling for Hydra to kind of check automatically, right, when attributes disappear? Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it feels like the correct way is to actually ask Nix because that's what glues the paths together or like makes the thing happen. But that's probably too slow for the entire thing, just to do it like this.
Yeah, but in any case, I think this will get most of the references, and it just finished.
Yeah.
And yes, I added a small exception in the code here, which says that if a file is only referenced in all packages.nix, then it's gonna print that. And the result here, we can look at that, contains, well, the result, I just have it output all the files and directories that are safe to move around. And so this includes a whole bunch of things which should be excluded at some point.
I don't know. That doesn't seem safe to move, my Git. Not to be pedantic, but
fair enough. But we also have all of these, and these are then the things we actually care about. So all the packages, and yeah, it has a pretty good list, and in particular, it doesn't include the ones we want to exclude. So like auto tools or something. Yeah, it's not here, which has these shared directories, which includes files used by multiple auto tools versions and similar packages. Yeah, so this works pretty great. And now I just need to kind of continue with this. What do you think? Should I just make that tool be like run once, give it a path to Nixpkgs, and it's going to do the entire auto-calling transition thing? So it's not a generic useful tool, but just for this very specific purpose. This would make it a lot easier to kind of design the interface around that.
I think that's better. Yeah, this feels like a one-off, quick and dirty type thing, right? We already know there's limits to its correctness, and so probably also to its applicability. I mean, for this is the right thing, right? But I don't think it's too generically useful.
There is a generic use case, and that is moving files around while ensuring references don't get broken. And that's essentially what it does. But it works nice to combine it with the other thing of like looking through all packages.nix and finding these references.
For me, I feel like the
individual
answer
files.
for this question is always don't bother to generalize like the CLI. Just do the simplest stupid thing for the current use case, but write the code in more like a library style of like nice functions than like, like a big script or something. So like behind the scenes, we're ready to generalize, or at least we're not actively resisting that, but there is no like premature exposing the general functionality.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And so just kind of make the code be nice and reviewable and maybe even testable and documentable, things like that.
Yeah.
Which isn't really the case right now. So yeah, this is the peer. I'd appreciate some feedback or some pair coding on this would be nice. And it currently just has a bunch of like unwraps in here, I believe. Yeah. All right, but I will continue working on this. I'm gonna just leave this down here. And I'll ping the, I guess I'll ping Vanya the next time I work on this. If you have time, you can help me out a bit.
Cool.
And we have one other thing from last time. I'm not sure. Have you already asked a message?
No, I didn't. My bad.
No problem. Let's just leave it in here.
You can copy it into this one.
What?
You can copy it. Oh, you did.
Yeah.
I wasn't there last week, so the cargo thing, is this about the crates.io registry?
Yeah, they did some sharding thing, and so we just want to pick their brains about it.
Yeah, the thing is pretty huge also.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of have something almost similar to what we plan to do with like 4 prefix sharding going on. But they also have these 3 special cases here for 1-letter, 2-letter, and 3-letter packages.
Oh.
Yeah. See you, Alex.
See ya.
Yeah, so we honestly, it might just be like a couple messages just to ask if anybody has like done any research into this or any testing. If so, we could look at that and or maybe reuse it or reuse the result here. But honestly, my expectation is that it was just done fairly randomly. Nobody did much testing.
Yeah, I don't. I bet it's not super tested formal. I'm just curious if they remember what problems they were responding to, in case that was the case versus like proactively doing the thing.
Yeah. They could also. Oh no, Git just does 2-letter prefix sharding. So it's not that they reused the one from Git. Yeah.
One from Git?
Yeah, the Git objects. They are sharded with 2-letter prefixes on the commit hash, or not the object hash.
I feel like
internally there's sharding in Git?
Sorry.
I didn't think there was.
The .git/objects directory.
Oh, that.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah, and that might also be another avenue just ask Git about how does it work out? Are there any reports of like it being too slow? But yeah, let's maybe keep this around for the future. Do we have that mentioned in an issue? So this Yeah, I'm also going to mention here briefly, we could also look into whether Git has any problems with its object sharding. Okay, but yeah, do we have anything else that anybody would like to bring up? Otherwise, we have the same issues from last time, which just need a bit of work. But the main ones are really the tooling and the reader speed and the Git speed. All right. Sounds good then.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess, yeah, have a good week and see you next one.
Great. Steady progress. Quick status
Yeah.
updates.